This election, we are planning to do a very powerful show, a big show with many personalities, a lot of guests. It's going to be a lot of fun. The problem is, as we're planning this, we know that the election results will not actually be in on Election Day. So while we are preparing a special Election Day show, in fact, we must also prepare a special election after day show and week and maybe even month. I'm not kidding. We have this from the Post-Millennial. Election results won't be in until November 9th. Fox News analyst. We really don't know how close this election is going to be. I'm pretty sure it's going to be close. So for us as a show, we want to bring you an extended special live stream from 5 p.m. till about 2 or 3 a.m. We'll have more details on this as we get closer to that date, but we should have a smashingly good time. The only problem is, as we're discussing this, we're like, yeah, but what do we do? When do we stop the show? The news will be persistent for days, for weeks. If the results don't come in until November 9th, it's 4 days after the election. So if we get those results, but in the meantime, lawsuits are filed blocking certain votes from coming in, how will we know whether they're actually going to be results at all? Now, the Post-Millennial says, the man who heads Fox News' election decision desk is prepared to make one prediction about the November 5th presidential election between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. The final results won't be in until November 9th, the Saturday after the Tuesday vote. The over-under is Saturday, said Arnon Mishkin in an interview with Politico, which is when the call was made last time. Mishkin is best remembered by some as being the network election analyst who called Arizona for Biden in 2020 well in advance of anyone else, infuriating Fox's largely conservative pro-Trump audience. And even some of the other pundits surrounding Mishkin that night. Fox fired a number of election pundits over that call. Why, though? It's just weird to me, to be completely honest. He also took on the former deputy chief of staff to President George W. Bush, Karl Rove, who said in 2016 Obama could not have won in Ohio. But despite past controversies, he maintains he gets no direction from the management to make our audience happy. Mishkin explained this contention that it will be a slow process to finalize the 2024 election results by saying the race seems very, very close. It is dependent on a number of states like Pennsylvania that we believe are going to be reporting in a pattern similar to the way that they've reported in the past. So I'd say the over-under is Saturday, which is when the call was made last time, which is when Pennsylvania is likely to come in. He told Politico that anyone watching this year's presidential election must accept the reality that we don't really know how close this election is going to be. I'm pretty sure it's going to be close. It's going to be a nail biter for sure. There's some reporting that Trump is sort of gaining. Some of the polls have shown he's gaining, Mishkin told Politico. He may be declining. He said Trump is the focus of the election, of any election he's in. It's less about who he's running against than it is Donald Trump. Mishkin said the competing election results of mail-in ballots and election day voting will be a huge factor in determining the winner in 2024, just as they were the last time around. But he doesn't think it will be a decisive factor. What we don't know now, but we kind of knew then, was that there was going to be an enormous skew in the vote type. I believe that Joe Biden won every state in the mail-in vote, with the exception of Alabama, and that Trump won every state on Election Day, with the exception of Vermont and maybe Connecticut. I think that skew is going to be less this time. I don't know how much less. I know it's still going to be there, but the Republicans are doing a much better job of encouraging people to vote however they want. My friends, civil war. Let me explain. Battleground states flooded with voting lawsuits weeks out from Election Day. Republicans have led the charge on pre-election litigation, targeting rules around mail voting, ballot drop boxes, and voter roll purges, despite a lack of evidence of fraud. Well, don't know, don't care. But the fight is on. Battleground states are already being flooded with lawsuits, as predicted. Trump is already talking to lawyers about contesting the results. Let me explain to you why I believe we are facing civil war. Now, there are a lot of arguments about why, maybe not. I don't know. I can tell you this. When they say that Democrats win mail-in voting and Republicans win election day voting, there is a distinction as to what the election actually is. My friends, this means we have two elections. The Constitution of this country prescribes that we have one election day. Now, states can handle their elections as they see fit. But if we are allowing people to count ballots and votes after Election Day, then we don't have an election day, do we? We have an election week or month. With early voting and mail-in voting in basically every state, the Constitution has been eroded. It says one day for the election. Now we don't have that. Now, Republicans certainly want a single day with paper ballots. Democrats want mail-in votes flopping around, flying all over the place. These are two different elections taking place. Democrats vote in their election by mail, and Republicans vote in their election in person. The in-person vote is the only one that matters per the Constitution, but Democrats end up winning 2020 because of their fake election. You see the game I'm playing at? Obviously, we as humans agree on the system in which we are going to participate. And Republicans agreed that mail-in votes are votes. Well, we have two different systems right now. Democrats win one, Republicans win the other. That's your dividing line. That's your civil war. I don't mean literally that because people vote differently, people are going to start fighting in the streets. I'm saying neither is going to respect the other. Republicans are going to say the Constitution says one day, this is the day, those votes don't count. And they're going to say every vote must count. You're trying to stop people from voting. There's two distinct realities here, and there's no agreement between the two. So what happens then if come this election, they play the same game? Donald Trump wins in-person votes. Democrats win mail-in votes. And then the Republicans say, no, we're suing. Democrats say we're suing. And then we get no clear winner between the two sides. That's why I say y'all need to go out and vote. Donald Trump needs to win the popular vote, and he needs to win the Electoral College. And it needs to be handily and patently clear that there is no recourse for Democrats. Now, it looks like Trump is winning very, very much so. There's no guarantees, but it really does seem like Trump's winning. It's funny the forecast models have Trump at like 55% when he's winning every battleground state. It's like, dude, if you account for margin of error and polling bias, it's over. It should be 99% Donald Trump. Nobody wants to make those calls because they'll look silly. Not to mention, Democrats have aces up their sleeve, probably 6 or 7 of them, which is silly, but, you know, that's how they play. NBC News reports. Political parties and groups have filed nearly 100 lawsuits across 7 battleground states that could shape how votes are cast and counted ahead of Election Day and the legal battle that's expected to follow. The majority of suits were brought by Republicans and allied groups who are focused on rooting out alleged voter fraud, despite the lack of evidence of its occurring in a widespread way, particularly around mail-in ballot procedures and non-citizen voting. Many suits have sought to purge voter rolls or bolster signature and voter identification requirements, or invalidate ballots that don't meet them, while others have looked to revamp different aspects of election administration, including reducing the use of ballot drop boxes and instituting unusual vote counting protocols, like requiring the ballots to be counted by hand. Unusual! You've got almost every country in the world counting these things by hand, and they have the nerve to say it is unusual to count these things by hand. I say, my friends, patently absurd. Now, before I go on, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, and that is Preserve Gold. Head over to preservegold.com/TimPool to check out Preserve Gold and consider gold for yourself in these trying times. We have a presidential election around the corner, and it's impossible to predict what will happen. However, whenever there's uncertainty, whether political or economic, demand for gold tends to go up. Financial experts are urging Americans to prepare now. With inflation soaring, a border crisis affecting cities and small towns, and warnings of a recession, my friends, we are living in insane, unpredictable times. To protect your retirement accounts and 401ks, you should strongly consider physical gold and silver. Right now, Preserve Gold has an exclusive offer for my viewers, where you can get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase, as well as a free guide. Text Tim to 50505 to learn more, or visit preservegold.com/TimPool. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews and millions of dollars in trusted transactions with happy clients. Happy indeed, my friends. Shout out to Preserve Gold for sponsoring the show. And again, preservegold.com/TimPool. I will add as an aside, as we go back into the news story, you don't need to hear it from an ad when we're talking about serious uncertainty, the potential for civil conflict, lawsuits raging, purging of voter rolls, and Democrats in the corporate press claiming that counting ballots by hand is unusual. Do what you got to do. Seriously, take precautions, do what you have to prepare for, and live your life the way you think you should. I can only provide the information. You make decisions for yourself. They're going to say lawsuits from Democrats and allied groups have focused mostly on expanding voter access by trying to extend registration deadlines or appealing for broader interpretations of laws about absentee ballots and voter identification. It's absurd. It's absurd, man. Bloody. According to an NBC News review, The groups have filed at least 96 suits since January 1st in the key swing states of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, whose electoral college voters are all but certain to determine outcome of the presidential election, possibly by as few as tens of thousands of votes. Voting rights expert said the Republican-led suits could help bolster efforts by former President Trump and his allies to challenge the outcome in November if he loses. They said that many of the suits aren't designed to succeed, but that they could help sow further distrust in the voting system. Quote, Americans know how important it is that every vote counts in this election, that our elections are exceptionally close, and that every vote has to be counted. That's why we have settled rules of the road early on, said Danielle Lang, senior director of the Voting Rights Unit at the Campaign Legal Center, a nonpartisan blah, blah, blah. What we are seeing now that is really troubling is a set of lawsuits being filed so very close to an election that they are trying to change the rules of the road in a way that would disenfranchise voters. A lot of this litigation is, quite frankly, not designed to succeed. It's designed to create confusion and chaos. Oh, like the Democrat DOJ suing Virginia and other states for trying to get non-citizens off their voting rolls. Spare me. NBC News, you are DemocratNews.com. That's all you are. Claire Zunk, the spokesperson for the Republican National Committee's election integrity effort, said in a statement that the operation is committed to defending the law and protecting every legal vote. Quote, we have engaged and won in a record number of legal battles to secure our election. We have stopped Democrats' schemes to dismantle election safeguards and will continue to fight for a fair and transparent election for all Americans. Democratic National Committee spokesperson Alex Floyd said in a statement that Democrats across the country are ready to stand up against MAGA Republicans, attack on our democracy, and efforts to sow chaos in our elections, from the polling place to the courthouse. We have assembled a robust legal and voter protection team with a proven track record of winning fights to protect voters' ability to make their voices heard. We're ready to stand up for all eligible voters' access to the ballot box. Here's a summary of the lawsuits filed so far across 7 states. Holy crap. Ladies and gentlemen, check this out. In Arizona, you've got, they say, blah, 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 Joe Biden. Republicans have filed suits related to voters who didn't provide adequate proof of citizenship and have sued to challenge various executive orders signed by the Democratic governor, Katie Hobbs, that expanded a number of agencies that can help determine rules governing voter registration. Yeah, that's called cheating. Changing the rules. They've also sued to challenge the state's maintenance of its voter rolls, claiming they are stocked with ineligible voters. Trump-aligned groups have sued several counties, alleging violations of rules. Totally in favor of this. If you aren't paying attention, you're not registered, it's your fault. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. Democrats, meanwhile, have filed suits related to certain county officials' decisions to refuse to enforce a rule that allows voters who've shown up at the wrong precincts to vote in their assigned precincts. That's weird. In Georgia, where Biden won by fewer than 12,000 votes, they say a host of Democratic and voting rights groups sued to challenge a new rule from the state election board requiring counties to count ballots on election day by hand. Though a judge blocked that rule this month, groups also sued to challenge other rules. That's insane. Count the ballots by hand so we know for sure it's legit. No. What? Why are we going to have robots do it? That's weird. The Georgia Supreme Court on Tuesday declined to take up an emergency appeal from the state Republican Party that would have restored these rules. That's wild. Meanwhile, Republicans plan to have filed suits that challenge Fulton County's poll workers' plans, seek to further purge voter rolls, and dispute rules in some counties that govern whether and how election officials consider voter eligibility challenges. In addition, a Republican election official in Fulton County who refused to certify the May primary results sued to maintain her ability to not certify those results. They're going to mention you got Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. It's interesting. Trump's winning right now in these states. I think it's right that, this is the game. This is the game. I'm clearly of the worldview that is more aligned with Republicans. It's fairly obvious. If there are ineligible voters, then they shouldn't be on the voter rolls. Why would they be? The Democrats argue, but eligible voters will get removed too. Wouldn't that also mean Republicans are going to be mixed in there? So what's the problem? The problem is Democrats know they have a lot of ineligible voters. Sorry. Trump is already talking to lawyers about contesting the election results. Here we go. Rolling Stone, which is a trash rag, says Trump has reestablished contact with a lawyer involved in efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Very interesting. And who is now encouraging the former president to begin laying the groundwork to once again contest the outcome. According to a Wednesday report from the New York Times, Trump has spent the last weeks of the campaign in frequent contact with Kurt Olson, a MAGA lawyer involved in several legal challenges to states results in the aftermath of Trump's 2020 loss. Olson also spoke to Trump multiple times on January 6th. What does that mean? The insurrection. Sources who spoke to the Times said that Olson has been encouraging Trump to begin preemptively demanding that voting machine data be preserved by election authorities in key swing states of Arizona, Wisconsin, and Georgia. Olson was also one of the primary advocates for Texas v. Pennsylvania, a 2020 election lawsuit which sought to prevent the certification of votes in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. I want to pause right there. And you say, this is why I say Rolling Stone's a trash rag. Texas v. Pennsylvania would have inadvertently prevented the certifications because Texas v. Pennsylvania was a lawsuit to the Supreme Court stating that only the legislative branch can change the rules of an election through the legislative process. Judges and governors cannot, but that's what they did. So Texas argued, if Pennsylvania is in violation of the Constitution and they implement a vote that invalidates ours, we have standing. And the Supreme Court went, meh. Now, Alito and Thomas, who are based, said, we must take up this case. It is it's original jurisdiction is what it's called. The states sued the Supreme Court. And the rest of them went, but we're scared. We're scared that if we actually issue rulings that could shape this country positively, people will be mad at us. Oh, poor babies. Well, the answer was never given. And because of this, we don't know what's going to happen this time around. I believe it is fair to say that should this election fail, it will have been the Democrat members. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say the Democrat members, but it will be the Supreme Court justices who refused to answer the question, who are responsible for what comes next. It was simple. Take up the case, hear the case, and say no. They didn't. They said, we'd rather just cower like pieces of trash. And that's what they did. And that's true of Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. I have no respect for them over this. I'm disgusted by this. Alito and Thomas both said, we need to hear the arguments at the very least. And they did. And I'll tell you why. Many people were upset and they believed that Donald Trump won. The least the Supreme Court could do was say, we will listen to you. The Supreme Court could have come out and said, for these reasons, we reject the claim. Pennsylvania conducted their election as they see fit. Goodbye. They didn't do it. They were scared that any kind of interfering would result in Republicans being mad at them or Democrats being mad at them because they're spineless, pathetic cowards. They are. That's what they are. Now we don't know. We are already seeing the states operating outside the confines of the Constitution. It is the fault of the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, I hear all these Democrats like, well, the Supreme Court is corrupt, blah, blah, blah. You know what, man? They're pathetic. They're cowards. They only issue rulings where they feel they will be safe. Except for Thomas and Alito. Thomas is based. That guy will just say whatever he feels. He's like, nah, we're doing it. Now, as we enter this next election, which is only, what are we looking at? 11 days away. Can you believe it? A week and a half. A week and a half, if that. We don't know what is allowed or not allowed at the state level as it pertains to elections because the Supreme Court said not interested. We are going to see wave after wave of lawsuit on this one. And the Supreme Court likely will cower once again. And when they do, this time, I don't think it's going to be pretty. No, I don't. There's fear of civil war. And it's not coming from me. I mean, people have been trying to kill Trump. Heaven forbid something bad happens like that before we're this close to the election. People are on edge. The Supreme Court failing to do its job is going to set people off. And they did. Now it's going to be even more contentious. The Supreme Court failed to do what needed to be done, which was to listen to the arguments. Now people are going to be fed up, furious, and if the Supreme Court doesn't take action, catastrophe. They're going to mention some other BS, blah, 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 Trump and blah, blah, Rolling Stone. I don't care. Donald Trump and Democrats are both preparing legal action to contest the results. If you believe that Mark Elias is not gearing up to file lawsuits on behalf of the Democrats, if they lose, you are nuts. So when Rolling Stone comes out and says something like this of Donald Trump, I say this is a trash rag. But in the battleground states, Democrats and Republicans, as we know from NBC, are filing their lawsuits. NBC can frame it all they want. They're going to frame it like Trump is the bad guy and Democrats are the good guy and the Republicans are good, or the Republicans are bad and Democrats are good. Spare me. They say Republicans are trying to purge the voter rolls to prevent Democrats from voting. And Democrats are trying to make sure that duplicate ballots get sent out. I'm not interested. If the action from Republicans results in even Republicans getting purged, well, then it's fairly neutral action, isn't it? But the Republicans know that Democrats have large amounts of people who are ineligible still in the voter rolls. And this means that ballots are going to get sent out to people who may be dead or otherwise ineligible. They don't want that to happen. Democrats don't care at all. Okay, look, I want people to be able to vote, but it's got to be legit. That's why I think universal mail-in voting is abhorrent. And it's funny, we've maintained it following COVID. We all knew that was going to be the case, that they would say we need universal mail-in voting, and they would never give it up. Now the system is corrupted. The Democrats have their electoral system, and the Republicans have theirs. And then the Republicans will reject Democrats, Democrats will reject Republicans, and then you tell me what you think is going to happen. My friends, right now over on youtube.com/Timcast, there is a debate about whether or not civil war will happen. I suggest you go check it out because this will be going up at 10 on Friday, and I will be live at the same time discussing this with Andrew Wilson and Rudyard Lynch. Will this country devolve into chaos conflict? What will it look like? And why, if it does happen, will it have happened? I think I've laid out a lot of reasons here for all of you. Check out that show over there. Of course, we'll also have more segments coming up later today on this channel. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Give us a good review on a podcast platform, 5 stars. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.